Hello, hello. What up? Not bad. Just seeing if my follower goal was working. Yep.
Relatively relaxed up front. Carlos Rodriguez, who had a disappointing day, sits in 6th, 17 minutes and 36 seconds behind Mark Cavendish. Celebrated by Christian Prudhomme, who signals the 35 stages that he has won. But a record, as we heard Adam talking about this morning, that potentially might not be out of the reach of Tadej Pogačar. Should he win another stage today, potentially the time trial tomorrow as well. He's already on 15. And he is very young indeed. Well, let's go and have our first opportunity to hear from Adam on the bike. Here he is.
Hello and good morning from a beautiful and very sunny and very hot Nice. It is gorgeous here. You can see the fans on the road. The peloton's just going back down that side now. We're still in the neutral zone, but it is a wonderful day for a bike race. I've never seen so many fans out on the road, apart from when the Tour de France came to England, obviously. But it's going to be a fascinating day today. The big one for me today is Tadej Pogačar. I personally think he wants Mark Cavendish's record. So I think for him, he might try and win that stage today. We are just turning the corner now, as you can see. But as I said, I think Tadej Pogačar is in hunt of Mark Cavendish's record, and he will go for another stage win today. It's going to be a beautiful day. I went for a beautiful run next to the seaside this morning. I am just loving life for this final day on the motorbike for me. Back to you guys.
Well, loving life, and he's going to love life even more throughout the rest of today. It is spectacular. It is beautiful. La Vie en Jaune, the Tour de France in Nice for this historic concluding weekend to the 2024 edition of La Grande Boucle. And with that in mind, let's go and join our commentary team. Today we start with Robbie McEwen, and first, Carlton Kirby.
What a stunning day, and what a stunning leader of this race we have. Tadej Pogačar taking himself into position this morning, just coming up alongside Biniam Girmay. Biniam Girmay gave him a squeeze on his left thigh. And then up came the King of the Mountains man, Richard Carapaz. Did exactly the same on the other side. I think they were just testing the man to see if he was real. Yes, he is. And this is a really tough day up ahead of us. So much on offer. And indeed, we're dwelling on whether Tadej Pogačar, in predatory mode, will just go for it again. Thinking the long game, of course. He's been busy writing the history books, and he wants every chapter to have his name at the top. And so far, this race, it's kind of felt that way, hasn't it? Absolutely beautiful part of the world, a stunning day, virtually no wind, at least at the beginning, but has a habit of blowing up a little bit later on. But it will be a storm that starts us off, and that will be a certainty. There's going to be a hurry to get into the breakaway, especially for those who are starting to think about their positions overall. Well, we'll be scratching our heads wondering how this is going to go. Who's going to control the beginning of the day? Mathieu Jorgensen, brilliant work by him, vaulting into the top 10 yesterday with that spectacular second place behind, of course, Tadej Pogačar. And that's something to protect. Indeed, so many very close at hand. Giulio Ciccone sits only 3 seconds down. Tell you what, let's find out what the great and the good think about today's prospects.
Well, after stage 19, no changes in the predictor standings as everyone picked Tadej Pogačar. Ilenia stays on top, but as you know, no one can pick the yellow jersey again today, so we'll have an interesting stage to come. My favourite for today's stage win is Mikel Landa. I think he's eager to take advantage of this opportunity to create a gap with João Almeida. He knows he needs to gain some time in order to take fourth position on the GC standings, considering that tomorrow's time trial will suit João Almeida better. He's always been retained by his team, but today I think they'll give him some liberty. So my favourite, it's Mikel Landa.
Mikel Landa.
Today is the penultimate stage of the 2024 Tour de France. Jonas Vingegaard is going to win. Yesterday marked 1 year since I'm gone, I'm dead. Pogačar set everything right yesterday and somewhat humiliated the men from Visma Mike. As the team leader, Vingegaard will set things right today and win the stage.
We have arrived to Nice. It's beautiful, isn't it? And stage 20. I think that Simon Yates will win stage 20. He's been close so many times already in the tour. He's been second, he's been third. He was up there yesterday on Isola 2000. I think today is a stage for Simon Yates. He knows these climbs from the Paris-Nice, where he has been very successful in the past. So I think a breakaway stage win for Simon Yates.
Our other experts have picked other options for today's stage. Jens Bocht and Steve Chanel believe polka dot jersey wearer Richard Carapaz can win again on the tour. Ola picks Jorgensen, whilst our leader Ilenia takes Jonas Vingegaard. Dariush, he went with Remco Evenepoel.
Just look at the day and just look at the enthusiasm. Well, the barriers are here, would you believe? It looks like solid humanity, I must admit, down on the ground. It is a wonderful part of the world to be part of. And of course, we're starting in Nice and we'll be ending the race tomorrow with the time trial. Today, however, it's about the breakaway, presumably, and the control that's going to be imposed upon it right from the very beginning. There's virtually no respite, I must tell you, at the start of today. We're either going uphill or down dale with very little in the valley bottoms. And that means that it's going to be full-on action, potentially, right from the very beginning. And the preservation of places overall certainly has to be a factor. Will anybody be allowed off the leash? That's the big question as well. In teams like Visma Bike, could they possibly allow one of their number to go up the road? Might we see both of the Yateses duking it out? This is all speculation, because essentially it depends, it seems, throughout this race, what is in the mind of Tadej Pogačar. Is, as Adam Blythe thinks, he really just not going to pass up any opportunity for a stage win? Or will they control? And what about Soudal Quickstep? Will they invoke some control on any breakaway to give Remco Evenepoel a chance of going on the attack a little bit later on today and maybe getting runners up spot, denying Jonas Vingegaard? Well, the gaps are there to be closed. And with 4.2 kilometers of the rollout, there's some nerves down there. As you can see, not much chit-chat going on at all as we start here in Nice. This was a little bit earlier on today. Binny called to the line first. Well, it was a moment where Tadej just pointed out it's an awful long way to go to the intermediate sprint on this day. But very good-natured, it has been right from the very beginning of this race. I must admit, the very best of enemies, you might say, and a huge amount of respect between Jonas Vingegaard and Tadej Pogačar. Jonas not wearing the polka dots because Richard Carapaz, after his efforts in the high ground, well, he now owns the jersey. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, this is the first time that all the jerseys are owned uniquely, which is rather lovely. So was the start of this race when Romain Bardet got himself a stage win, settled the nerves of Monsieur Prudhomme. There's always a long wait sometimes until we get a French victory. Well, we had one with Bardet and we had one with Vauquelin as well. As you can see then, we're all dialed in and ready for some drama of the start, and it's surely going to be quite brutal. Banner is used to that level of brutality, of course, in his career. He was usually imposing it on others, not after the high mountains, you understand, but give him a break. It's Robbie McEwen. Welcome, Robbie.
Hello, Carlton. Second last day, but kind of feels like the last one. Last time we'll see the bunch all together.
Isn't it strange? It very much has that party atmosphere, doesn't it? I'm expecting
Well,
this sort of long
not the kind
lead
of
up.
party that I want to be invited to.
Well, somebody's going to kick the table over and pick up the scraps, and we're wondering who that might be. A level of control, perhaps, that we haven't seen so far might be imposed because there's a lot of teams with a last chance to get somebody in the break, but also keeping him on a short leash might actually help the likes of Remco Evenepoel if he wants to gun for that second place. If Jonas Vingegaard is just succumbing to a little bit of fatigue, which is hardly surprising in the build-up to this race. Don't know how it's going to go, Robbie.
No, there's a lot of question marks around this stage. And Tadej said yesterday after the finish that, oh, well, on stage 20 we'll let the break go, and I don't believe that, really. I mean, they might be thinking if it's the right combination of not too big a group, etc., we can let it go and not ride. But I think the race is going to be incredibly aggressive already through the streets of Nice before we get onto the first climb. I think it's going to look like an all-out criterium battle to be getting away within the first few kilometres before we hit the first climb of the day. But once we do, there's going to be so many riders wanting to get in the break. The thing is, it won't go on for a very long time, like we've seen on some other stages, because of the difficulty of the profile and hitting the first climb just after 9 kilometres in. So things should sort themselves out fairly quickly. Just be a question of which riders are getting in the break. Are they a threat to others on GC? And that's where I think we'll see a big influence of teams and riders protecting their places, and that will shape what the breakaway is allowed to be.
All our jerseys owned now, Robbie, after the exploits of Richard Carapaz, and it looks like it might be good to get into a break today and make sure of it.
Well, that's the expectation by almost everybody, I think, of Carapaz getting in the break again. If he misses it initially in the first few K, then look for EF to do exactly what they did yesterday. And that was a really good team ride to place Carapaz up there. I mean, he had to get himself in there in the end, but his team keeping things rolling, keeping the pace up to keep him within the vicinity that he could ride across to the break and get in. So it was a fantastic ride. And if he could just pick up points on the first climb of the day, or even be up there over the first two, then that competition is well and truly over.
Some teams have missed out entirely on stage wins despite being extraordinarily active. We just saw Magnus Cort, and I've got to tell you that mobility, UnoX mobility, should certainly have a big roll of the dice today, but there's so many other teams as well that really don't want to miss out. I'm actually wondering whether this is going to be the kind of day where some gifts for helpers may well be offered up, Robbie. It depends on how it is set, of course, towards the end of the day. If Tadej Pogacar's got a chance of adding to his tally of 4 stage wins so far in this race, I say so far because you just never know with him when it's going to multiply. But Jonas Vingegaard, will he accept a podium spot, accept Evenepoel, indeed bullying him a little bit, if it meant that Matteo Jorgensen could get himself a stage win after yesterday's performance, which was amazing?
Certainly, I think Jonas Vingegaard would be more than happy to see more or less a repeat of yesterday's stage, but with Matteo Jorgensen staying away and winning himself a stage. It seems now that Jonas has resigned himself to finishing second. I don't think he'd be overly worried about Remco Evenepoel riding him out of the wheel on this stage. You do never know. I mean, a bad day is only ever around the corner. But he should be able to defend himself for that second place. And, you know, whether Jonas finishes second or third doesn't make a massive difference at the end of the tour. Of course, you'd rather finish second, but the real battle, what he really wanted, well, that's gone now.
Huge mountain day, very much an homage to the Paris-Nice. It feels familiar to those who love that race, Robbie, excuse me.
Carl.
There's a ghost in the house.
Well, I mean, it really is an homage to what is now the final day of Paris-Nice. In years gone by, it was a time trial over the Col d'Air, like we're going to see tomorrow. For some years, and I thought that was a beautiful finish, was a road stage that finished on the Promenade des Anglais. I thought that was a beautiful, it was very Champs-Élysées style end to Paris-Nice when they finished with a flat finale. Used to loop out of Nice, go over a Cat 2 climb and come back in, and then up and down the Promenade des Anglais. But yeah, today it's a absolutely beautiful day out there, and for the non-climbers, they'll be thinking that the goal from when we started in Firenze 3 weeks ago was to get to Nice. We're here. Why are we leaving again? And they're going up and into the hills to do a loop and come back.
I think that's probably why it's got that atmosphere about it, Robbie, that you were talking about. Well, if it's nervous and we're on tenterhooks at the moment, then I imagine that this is going to get extraordinarily pacey right from the very beginning. We are heading into the hills. It's a double phaser on our first climb of today. It has a little bit of a kicker, downhill run within the test of the climb. So it kind of
This has got to be like 220.
that we are there to worry about, but it does pick up to around 10% very early on. Within the reach of the first climb, and then a whole sequence of hurts comes after that. So it's the Col de Braus, then we'll be dealing with the Turini, and of course the Col Main a little bit later on, and finishing of course on the Col de Crillon. Here is Christian Prudhomme. He's in a very happy mood until now, and I'm not surprised. It's been a great race. And we're underway. The penultimate stage of this year's Tour de France. We think we may well know our winner, but it all has to be completed. And a task at hand right from the very beginning is to get yourself in the breakaway. And it has started, Robbie. This is going to rock and roll all the way to the very end of this short 133 kilometres with 4 mighty testing climbs crammed within that distance.
Well, we're back to what we were seeing in the first week of the race, or first half of the race. Jonas Abrahamsen, first man to attack the Norwegian from Uno X, rode quite a few days in the polka dot jersey, the full regalia, the polka dot shorts and the whole lot, and he's back on the attack as first man to go today. Chris Jules Jensen, he's been infiltrating the breaks over the last few days, always making the early move. But you can see behind DSM Firmenich Postenel, they'll be hoping to get Romain Bardet or maybe Oscar Onley up in the break. In fact, I think on a day like this, anybody you can get in the break, you say, okay, success, we've got one in there.
There's no doubt Romain Bardet will be thinking of bookending this Tour de France. And no surprise at all to Uno X Mobility getting extraordinarily busy. How much policing of this is going to go on is anybody's guess, but EF would like somebody at least up the road, maybe as a foil for Carapaz.
Well, they've got Nielsen Paulus just went. Bissiger is tracking this move by, it looks like, Julien Bernard, and kicking off again behind. So it looked like it was just pausing. Richard Carapaz there in second wheel of the peloton, in the wheel of the Ineos rider. So, you know, EF, you can already see what their plan is. You know, make sure they got someone in it, but also just drag Carapaz back to the front all the time, put him in a position to then get himself in the break. And you know, I think preferably they'd like to get it to the climb before things really go and split. That's the best place for Carapaz, just to join the breakaway.
Well, we haven't got much of a reach before we actually get to the foot of our first climb. The road is actually already picking up, as you can see. So we're already dealing with a false flat. And if you look further back as well, the foreshortening of the camera, or the elongation of it, I should say, as Abrahamsen kicks on here, and the whole of the tongue of the Viper starts to reach out towards him here. 3 kilometres in, it's already been breathless. This may well be a very fast day, not the longest. In fact, it's our shortest road day, save for the time trials in this year's race. So everybody wants to take on the first test immediately. Just look at the pace here. A little bit of a roller coaster to start us off. There is this little up and down section, as I was telling you, of the first climb, and then we'll be hitting maximum gradients on the first of our tests today of nudging up towards 12%. It's no easy task. And the fast man Varenscholz, who I think there was some doubt as to whether it would be him or indeed Alexander Kristoff for some of the sprints. Kristoff, they fell behind because he was in stellar form, just couldn't manage to get himself a stage win out of this one, so they're kind of recalibrating just a little bit. Magnus Court will be at the forefront of their minds. They still haven't picked up a stage win, still at full strength, which can't be said for too many teams here. Lots of those, I'm afraid, have had the unfortunate marker of being out of this year's race, and some coming very, very late. And I felt very sorry for Arnaud Demar yesterday, or delay, Robbie.
Yeah, he's had a couple of close calls with the time limit in this tour, and it's mentally very hard to keep going day after day just to reach a time limit, to go and be in that situation again the next day with no carrot dangling of a possible stage win, something to race for at the end. But he was obviously just completely empty. But a credit to him for riding all the way to the finish line, even though he would have known all the way up the final climb that he was going to be outside the time limit. Probably even before that on the bonnet, you can as a sprinter, you can already do the calculations. You know how you're feeling and think, well, I just know I'm not going to make it on time, but you go all the way. Wardenskjold here is just constantly looking over the shoulders. It's like when he went, he took off. He opened up a big gap, no one in the wheel. He looked over his shoulder, and it was almost a look of, oh, have I just gone the wrong way?
It's a strange one, isn't
because
it?
there's no one's followed me, but he's got a teammate coming across now, re-accelerating. It's Magnus Court with a fading moustache.
And going again. Yeah, he's only just dyed it as well. I don't know what he used. Meanwhile, of course, former world champion here, Rui Costa, also coming along for the fun of it at the moment.
Hindley.
Looking back to see who's bridging over for Movistar. No, Gaviria has been very, very lively during this race, but sadly no longer with us. Mas just fading a little bit, I'm afraid, in the mountains. Don't know who they'll be gunning for. Possibly Loscano today. Let's see. The Chateau de Bayet. Something for us to ponder very briefly, John, as it's all kicking off.
Yep, this is originally from the Savoy region. The barons of Bayet founded their estate in the 18th century, and this was built in 1873 as a tribute to Agnes Rossier de Bellay, now whose houses the boutique and tasting rooms. Very nice.
Indeed, and there are the vineyards around. No time for sightseeing here. It's at Court and Costa. Almost sounds like an acronym, doesn't it? Let's see. Meanwhile, our world champion got himself a rear puncture. Not ideal, especially with the sort of tension that we're dealing with at the moment, Robbie.
Well, I guess Mathieu van der Poel is lucky he's Mathieu van der Poel to get a puncture at this moment in the race. Well, I mean, for anybody in the race, this is borderline panic stations to have to wait for the team car, and they've got no one on GC, so their team car is a very long way back in the convoy. So he'll be looking for a slick change and then ride his way back on, but we're really not far away from hitting the first slopes before we get a very short descent. So Mathieu is going to have a pretty solid afternoon just getting himself back into a decent group.
4,500 meters and more of climbing today, altitude gain. That means, of course, we've got an awful lot of descending as well. Mathieu van der Poel just waiting for his car, just riding it on here. That's the way to do it, Robbie. Don't pull to the side of the road. No rookie errors from this man, as you'd expect. No,
but you can see the skills needed, the bike handling skills to just ease yourself through a roundabout. He took it very slowly, but you can still see the tyre underneath him just squirming as he came through that roundabout, and it would have tipped a lot of people off. But Mathieu van der Poel, he just would feel like he's riding another cyclocross.
All right, we got 2 minutes.
Slimy. Carry on.
Still rocking up front, as you can see. Rui Costa, Nielsen Paulus trying to get over. That's their one of their super targets for today. Ugo Uhl, Magnus Court, we've seen as well. It's settling in with Jordan Jagat, who's been really an eternal breaker, I must say, within this race, and Anthony Turgis as well. Yeah, they really have been busy, Total Energies, right from the very start. Got no joy yet, but they've made us talk about them, Robbie.
Well, they've ridden a very good race. I mean, they've got the stage win with Anthony Turgis, and a few days ago, Matteo Verchier, second on the stage behind Victor Campenaerts. That was a brilliant ride. I mean, imagine riding your first tour, you're a young Frenchman, and you end up in a three-man sprint for a stage win with Victor Campenaerts and Michał Kwiatkowski. We saw him crying after the finish in the wash-up, and after he finished second, as an incredible chance to win a stage. But I think as a team, they have accomplished what they would have dreamt of coming into this tour. They've also got Steph Kruss, incidentally, on GC, sitting in 15th place. So a top 15th GC, stage win, young rider going close as well, being in a lot of breaks, good on Total Energy.
Yep. Hope Jagat gets something out of this. Stage 9, the gravel stage, going the way of Turgis. Spectacular. In fact, one of a raft of French winners which have illuminated the race. 52 kilometres per hour. They're not hanging around, and he started. This is the this is Rui Costa. Now, he's usually given to beating up those around him, but he's busy talking to his own teammate here, giving the old fist pumps here. He's a devil to be in a break with, Robbie. We know that.
Yeah, he's encouraging towards the rest. Come on, come and do your share of the work, and mine, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I do love watching him, but I'd hate to be in there with him, to be honest. Remarkable.
That's what his teammates say about him. He's I've heard, I won't name any names, but I've heard them say, it's great when he's your teammate, terrible to race against.
15 seconds is your gap, 125 kilometres of the day remaining. It seems like we have a very short one, Robbie, but it couldn't be sharper.
No, it's short in terms of kilometres. It's a very long afternoon out, and it's Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe leading the chase behind the peloton. Jai Hindley went with the move when Rui Costa went, and I don't know quite, I couldn't identify why. Maybe it was just legs, but he left a gap, and I think it was when Søren Wardenskjold went to sit up and Jai Hindley went in the wheel, and suddenly they were gapped. He never got back, and he's from being right there, they've now missed the break.
This actually looks reasonably solid just because of the numbers of the quality of the riders who are up here. Turgis, a stage winner, Magnus Kort, of course, Ugo Uhl, Nielsen Paulus and Rui Costa. Goodness me, that's an engine room, and it's going to take some reaching out to. How much policing do you think is going on here, Robbie, amongst the GC players? And by that I mean those who are gunning for a top 10 spot.
None just yet. No police on GC, as you can see down there. Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe leading the chase. GC teams are nowhere to be seen at the moment. I even see Dylan Groenewegen riding towards the front, give himself some drift room once we hit the climb to get himself into the gruppetto. But yeah, the GC teams, like UAE, the first one of them is in around 15th wheel, Tim Wellens. So they're just letting it happen at the moment, as UAE so often do. In this front group, incidentally, we have 4 riders who are already stage winners in the Tour de France. Anthony Turgis, of course, on stage 9 of this race. Rui Costa has won stages in the past. Ugo Uhl in Foix a year ago. Magnus Kort. Guys who know how to get it done.
Exactly. Well, those who know how to get it done are just following on as well. Hoping in on Remco Evenepoel. Big day for him. Not sure whether it's a possibility of him closing down a 2-minute gap, minute and 58 between himself and Jonas Vingegaard. But he will give it a go. You can be certain of that. 10 seconds is your gap at the moment as we hove over the stunning hills around here. This is Caron. Maybe a hard S, I'm not quite sure, in these parts. John, beautiful.
Yes, it is. I would go for the hard S here. I think Carros Castle, originally built in 1156. First occupant, Mustang de Carros.
Welcome back, everybody. Just dwelling on some spectacular sights at the moment. Stage 20 of the Tour de France. Destination Col de Couilleul, and 132.8 kilometres only. However, crammed into that, over 4,500 metres of altitude gain, and we are already climbing. We're on the approach to our double-phase mountain, the Col de Braus, and we've got ourselves a quality breakaway, but just a handful of seconds. Being policed as it is by Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe, a team, of course, hobbled by the exit of both Primož Roglic and indeed Alexander Vlasov. So, Jai Hindley, that would be something. That would be a heck of a story, and one that would make you smile, Robbie.
Well, there's been a lot to smile about in this race. We see now a counter-attack coming from Red Bull Bora Hansgrohe. This is Jai Hindley, who I mentioned before. He was right there in the move initially with the man who's in third wheel, Søren Wardenskjold, and then just, I think, let himself get a bit tripped up, just missed the moment. But the peloton, well, no, not coming back to the break. This is Anthony Turgis.
Bernal here, Carapaz just waiting for the move. And suddenly decides that
Oh.
he's going to go with Sean Quinn. By the look
Geraint
of him, just
Thomas.
hooking it in here.
Sorry, Carlton. Geraint Thomas riding off into the gravel.
Well, you've got to find a way round. We were warned about narrow approaches to this by Hannah Walker, who's been doing some brilliant work on our behalf on the ground. And there's an argument here. It's all not going to work. They're accusing each other, co-accusing of not doing enough. Man did more than enough in this race. There's been a few, hasn't there? This is where the gruppettos, do they start already, Robbie?
Yep, starting already. You're better off, rather than go in the red and blow yourself up and not be able to join the group, you might as well be the group and then ride your way forward. So you see Victor Campenart's pacing Arnaud Dilly, Jasper Philipsen here on the back of the group. Jared Drisner's number 1, 2, 4, the other man from Lotto Destiny. The Aussie, I think, has done fantastically well to get himself through the tour, at least to this point, and I think he'll get through today. Really nasty crash in the same fall that claimed Primoz Roglic with his injuries. Drisner's fell on his backside, basically on his tailbone on top of the gutter, and he has struggled incredibly in this tour just to get through, so good on him.
Musée Matisse, specially built, John, for the great man.
Yes, and the previous chateau that we were looking at, just sort of into Carroll's Castle, is now the International Centre of Contemporary Art. Lots of art in this area. So you have the museum to Matisse. Lots of people will have owned a Matisse poster in their student days, probably emblazoned on the wall. That is the centre of all of his greatest works.
It is indeed. There's a beautiful Matisseian chapel not that far away from here as well. If you ever go, he did a lot of applique, so scissor work, I think it's fair to say. They give you a large pair of scissors and a piece of paper and say, go on, then you have a go. Very difficult, I can tell you. You can also nip your fingers. Nobody's managed to nip off up the road just yet. It's a concoction at the front. And because of that, we're not quite sure who is going to be the saucier today. The ultimate, indeed, accolade of any chef in France is to call them a saucier. It's where we get the word sorcerer from. And John will be telling us about what magic he's conjured up out of the oven a little bit later on. Marco Haller. Yesterday, as we watch riders already struggling, Robbie, last man home that is still in the race was Mark Cavendish. He times it brilliantly, doesn't he?
Well, it's all calculation, but also riding at what is effectively your maximum output all day for that distance. And you know, if you're not sick or not injured, you should be able to just go inside it. And as you'll see a lot of sprinters do, and Mark has talked about this a lot, and we've been doing this for many years, you don't use unnecessary energy to be too far inside the time limit. If you know you're safe, you can ease off and cruise to the top, and you just save that little bit more for the next day. Anyway, we're into the phase on the climb. Richard Carapaz in third wheel. We've seen this before. Mathieu van der Poel. If it's not rocks on the road in Nokere Koerse, it's bidons on the roads of the Tour de France, flicking it off with the front wheel. Don't you love it?
It's just amazing. I mean, you know, to have that level of confidence apart from anything else, it just shows you that the machine is essentially part of his body. He's just a phenomenon.
Oh, an incredible bike handler as well as just a phenomenal athlete, and he's in a way used this Tour de France as a really tough training camp, if you like. He's done the lead outs for Jasper Philipsen with great success. Took them 10 days to get there, but they did it. But Mathieu van der Poel, he's completely focused on the Paris Olympic Games. He'll ride one more race in between now and then, which is an exhibition criterium, I believe in Roeselare, straight after the Tour. So
Carapaz up towards the front. He's got a wingman with him as well. And if you thought that the hunt for mountains points is eased a little bit, then think again. He wants to make absolutely sure of having that jersey at the end of this race. And well, now's the time to start adding to your account. We're on a Category 2 test. Not the biggest test today, but if you can get over the first two, then he is uncatchable, I believe. In that competition. He did himself all kinds of favours by assembling the big points when they came his way, Robbie.
He's done exactly what he's needed to do at all points in the race. He started his charge late for the King of the Mountains jersey, but by getting himself into breaks and then starting to focus on it and then taking major points yesterday. And I'm not ignoring these beautiful shots of these hairpins, but as we go up the climb, it gets even better. But I was just looking at the composition at the front of the race as we see a split now, so a move getting off the front, and Matteo Jorgensen is in it. I think there was also Nicolas Prodhomme of Decathlon Agi Désert, but definitely Matteo Jorgensen has followed the move by EF Education First. So he's up the road and looking for redemption after yesterday.
Well,
might be tough though, Carlton. He's in the top 10 now.
Yeah, he is. So he's going to be marked out. You can be absolutely sure of that. In fact, he sits only 3 seconds ahead of Ciccone. Santiago Buitrago is 10 seconds outside of the top 10, so a little bit further adrift of Ciccone. So a lot to fight for. But Jorgensen, if this is an homage to Paris-Nice, Robbie, it must be roads that he's familiar with.
He'll be 100% familiar with these. You know, lives and trains around here during the cycling season. I'm not saying he's from here. He was second on the final stage of Paris-Nice behind Remco Evenepoel, but of course Matteo Jorgensen did that wearing the yellow jersey as winner of the race overall. First got Lawrence de Plus has got himself up here as well for the Ineos Grenadiers. Tratnik as well.
Already feeling the heat, Richard Carapaz. And metaphorically, in another way, I guess you might say, Mate Mohoric, who finds himself in the cars. Don't think he's got a technical problem. His problem is just that it's been an extraordinarily difficult race, this. There's been so much brutality within the course of this year's Tour de France, and it's backstacked with a revisit to the Alps, which we're enjoying today. After we went over the Col de Bonnet, which had those double points, 40 in fact, for Carapaz. It may well have been a late action into the fray for the polka dots, but he's kind of made it his own. How will today finish? Well, possibly Carapaz will be at least on part of our lips, I imagined, by the end of today, but who else? That's the question. Well, it's starting to thin out just a little bit, I've got to tell you. Mark Cavendish, doggedly determined to keep stamping on the pedals. What group will he finish today? It doesn't matter, provided he's in the time cut. You've already seen the homage paid to him by Christian Prudhomme at the beginning of the day. Again, his own hand signals to describe exactly what that man has produced. Well, we've been surprised on a couple of days, Robbie, as to who is starting to struggle, but it's been a long and very difficult race, and Aaron Burrow just leading that group.
Yeah, like you say, you sometimes find unlikely riders in certain groups, and you know, we spotted Mark Cavendish. Well, he's had a really good start considering who's already been dropped and groups that are forming off the back, so Cav's put himself in a good position. But to see a guy like Aaron Burrow then in that same group, normally he would still, I wouldn't say comfortably, but he would still be within the main peloton at this point. So when you crack, well, you really blow apart in the Tour de France.
You certainly do. I think we're going to see a lot of that today. Yesterday they added 3% to the time cut-off just as a favour to those who found the very end of this race just a constant series of brutal climbs. Didn't do Arnaud Demar any good. I'm just wondering whether we need to fear about other riders who on the penultimate stage might find themselves trimmed out of it. The green jersey is already at 1:07. I can only imagine that there's no fears remaining for Biniam Girmay. What a story that has been as well. And the way that he's constantly just well, fought back against adversity, taking a big tumble as well. We were very worried about him. Meanwhile, mountain points, category 2 up for grabs. If they're on the table, then help yourself, Robbie.
Yep. 10 kilometres long, and this is just mean. You see that the climbing we've already done, groups being blown out the back of the race. We see Tadej Pogačar here in at the front of what is the main peloton, but it's splitting under just the controlling pace set by his teammate. But you know, the climb just starting now. They've already done a 3-kilometre climb, but that apparently is not part of this. So you're already into a gruppetto, and then you see this is where the climb starts. That is a bit mean, but yeah, pace on. Now this is the Carapaz group up the front with, is that Adam Yates down there riding fourth wheel? I think it is.
Well, it certainly looks solid enough to be his style. I was actually wondering if we might get the brothers up the road today. Adam versus Simon, you might have thought. Well, we were asking whether there might be any gifts being offered up, and Adam Yates, you know, he's been such a solid, there he is indeed, it's just been such a solid servant. That's what the contract says. He's backing up Tadej Pogačar, but as others kind of were wondering about their own potential within this race, such as Shao Almeida, I thought he'd be the up the road, to be honest, and the departed Juan Ayuso. But Adam Yates has always been solidly in support of Tadej Pogačar. And you know what, if Pogačar's got a chance, having Yates up the road is a fabulous thing to have, but likewise, I don't think he'd be too upset if Adam went on and took himself a very well-deserved stage victory.
I think that might be the plan, Carlton. I thought I saw in the background Simon Yates also coming across to this group, but I think it's a tactical decision by UAE Team Emirates, because the same men from Visma Lease bike as yesterday up there again, Wilco Kelderman, Matteo Jorgensen. So I think UAE said, okay, Adam, you go up there and mark those two, and then if and when we let this go and nobody else closes it down, you can ride for the stage victory. In fact, it looks more like Michael Matthews. No, Simon.
Well, 8.3 kilometres until we get to the summit, but they're almost sprinting up it at the moment as the conundrum as to who's going to be up the road continues to be revealed to us. Chris Juul Jensen, part of this group. Looking at as to who else just ahead. Brian Kokar has been doggedly determined, you know, just to make sure he's up there in the forefront of our minds as well on a consistently regular basis, I must admit. Even in some of the hilly stages, Kokar proving that he really is a points monster for that team. I think that was his job for Cofidis, to be honest. Done a great job in that regard. Equally, out front, Adam Yates always looks so menacing. And he's turned himself inside out on behalf of Tadej Pogačar frequently throughout this year. And I think has been his most useful servant. And as I'm saying, I'm thinking, no, it wasn't. It was Niels Pollitt.
You know, Adam Yates, he's been really suffering over the last week. He was interviewed yesterday after the stage and said he's really starting to find his legs again because he'd been suffering with illness, and he was missing in action for a few days, just had to get himself through and hope to come through it, which he has in a quite spectacular fashion. You'd be ill in the Tour de France and then bring yourself back to the point where you're really useful for your team leader in the yellow jersey. But what I mentioned earlier is that there'll be a lot of marking going on by riders in and around the top 10. We do have exactly that. Derek G is in the break. Buitrago, Ciccone is there as well. Adam Yates around that same spot, and GC as well as Matteo Jorgensen. So sort of 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th are all up there in the break.
Oh, it's getting hard. Ben Healy is a man who has, if you're talking about people who've turned themselves inside out, then Ben Healy is that man, quite frankly. It's such a shame for him that he didn't get a stage win. There's a couple of times that Sean Kelly in particular was thinking, gosh, it's going to be now. Didn't quite work out for him. Here we go, it's just starting to fracture up front. It's a big group of 22 riders, and as a result, they're kind of testing each other just now. And Adam Yates is now being traced, as you can see, by Richard Carapaz, who's just sticking on his back wheel as Kelderman sets the mark. They have Matthew Jorgensen and Ties Benoot up here, Jan Tratnik as well. Here comes Team Radio.
There are riders everywhere, but I'll tell you who is somewhere, and it is in the front group now, is Tadej Pogačar. The yellow jersey's just ridden across to the group with Adam Yates on the front. Carapaz, there he is, back a shot. Tadej Pogačar along with Remco Evenepoel. And I'm looking for Jonas.
He's on the radio as well. So he's already battle planning. When everyone just gets to their limit, he has the wherewithal on the reserves just to start formulating, indeed, the strategy. Good to see Derek G up there as well. He's somebody who sits in 8th place at the moment overall. Fabulous effort by the Canadian. Not that far away from Matthew Jorgensen, so maybe a battle between the pair of them. Evenepoel has also made it up here as well, as you can see. So virtually all the jerseys, save for the green, of course, further down the mountain, found themselves here at the front phalanx. And I'm just wondering how this is going to pan out. It's not going to be a ride through here, surely, by UE Team Emirates, Robbie, but there's a danger of it.
Well, this is something we discussed on the breakaway this morning, about the possibility of a break being let go, as Tadej Pogačar spoke about yesterday post-stage. But I thought that particularly the UAE teammates of Tadej Pogačar would be able to egg him on to go for the stage win. And this is the last road stage. They don't get the procession for the first half of a stage into Paris as we normally would ride as a team. And I think they'd be more than happy just to empty the tank one more time. And it's the perfect terrain for their team. When you look at their team on paper, the climbing power within that team, they could take a stage like this by the scruff of the neck. And if a stage is there to be won, I think the teammates of Tadej would say, well, why not just go out and get it?
Might be a bit of showboating, you're absolutely right. So a brace just off the front for the time being. However, with Tadej Pogačar in that chasing group at the moment, with a gap opening up, Kelderman and Amorai, their cards may well be marked. I'm not quite sure how early. Carapaz in there. I don't know whether Tadej Pogačar would be into offering gifts to a man who's taken control of the polka dots. It's not a jersey that Tadej Pogačar is, I think, particularly concerned about. But you know what? If the points are there, I don't know whether he'll be tempted to have a dig at it. Let's wait and see. It is Michael Matthews within this group, and it's, as you can see, a group of struggles at the moment. So there's a whole load of those down the mountain. Niels Pollitt looks like he may have got a day off here. I'm not quite sure. He's on the radio, however. He's wanting to know if they need him.
There's no day off. It doesn't matter where you are in this peloton. There's no day off.
Me?
He's scrambling, trying to stay in touch.
It's a really hot start to the penultimate stage of the Tour de France. It's 34 degrees where I'm stood, but it's a hot start as well because it's quite stressful. There's lots of road furniture, narrow roads into the base of the first climb of the day. But on the climb itself, I have to say, the road surface is excellent. And for the most part, it's a newly laid surface. There's several hairpins which rear up in quite some severity, to be honest, where it really will cause some riders some quite difficult moments, I think. The crowds here are excellent, and one rider in particular who will have a warm welcome. I saw Urshka Ziegart at the roadside. That'll be a nice sight for Tadej Pogačar to see his fiancée at the roadside.
It will be a nice sight, to say the least. It's kind of felt like a bit of a family affair, I must admit, with the likes of riders heading off for the birth of his first child, with the proclivity, I think, of Jonas Vingegaard to call home before anything else whenever he finishes a road stage. Fiancés and partners everywhere. Never used to be the case, Robbie, back in the day.
Not as common as now. I mean, logistics was always one of the huge problems, and the, so I guess you could say, the culture of the sport. It was like when you're at the race, you're at work, and it was treated as such. I'm not saying it's a bad thing now. I think it's a good thing. The accessibility of the race, riders can, if they choose to, have their families come and be at the race. But it is a logistical nightmare. You can't underestimate how difficult it can be to just go and visit the Tour de France. Getting around the place, the roads are a nightmare. Accommodation anywhere near starts, finishes, or teams, because everything's so booked up. Bit of a nightmare, but it's nice to see where we get those moments at finish lines, riders with their kids before the start, etc. Makes the suffering worth it, and there's plenty of suffering on today.
There is Enric Mas just rolling off the front of this group that includes Tadej Pogačar. Adam Yates was there. We were thinking, is he allowed off the leash, or is he going to be used by Tadej Pogačar? And as if to answer the question immediately, he's joined by Max Soler. We have Chao Almeida there as well. And so in this kind of group, do you really want to be with it at the end of the day? And Enric Mas has said, no, thank you very much. And so he's just rolled off the front at the moment. Enric's best finish on stage 17 within this race, where he finished in in third place. That was the run to Super de la Voie, the day that Carapaz won ahead of Simon Yates. We got ourselves essentially a breakaway win. Well, it's a big ask if he's going to go solo at the moment. Just bridging over, as you can see, to those who sit out in front, forming a trio. Yellow jersey. Yellow jersey of Tadej Pogačar. Just as that front group now starts to fracture a little bit, Marcus being sent out. This has been more controlled, Robbie, than I thought it would be, to be honest.
I agree with you. I didn't think UAE would control quite this much, as we now get the Carapaz attack followed by Matteo Jorgensen. Derek G, though, and this is what we talked about. As soon as Jorgensen was going to move today, now that he's ridden himself into the top 10, you're going to see the likes of G, Ciccone, Bertrago, Felix Gull all try and be there, because everyone wants to shore up their positions. Of course, we've still got the time trial tomorrow, but they'll be fearing Matteo Jorgensen in the time trial as well. So everybody's sort of protecting their little plot today, and that's why Jorgensen's not getting the freedom that many might have expected. It just, you can't underestimate what it means to these riders after all this suffering the last 3 weeks, what it means to them to have a place in the top 10, and you don't want to lose a spot you work so hard to get.
21 average miles an hour.
Just showing that he's worthy of these mountains points. So he's riding with those who would like to get a bit of a gap. So he's essentially saying, look, I'm not a passenger here. I'm going to do some work. And in some of the more sterling twists and turns of this climb, he has actually added to the impetus up front. Mas just trying to bridge. It looks like that group may indeed start to come together. There's a group with Romain Bardet, which is detailed as the third group here. Romain Bardet, today you could see the reflections of his face on the Christian Prudhomme, our race director's car window. He was so determined to at least be part of the story today, but there's so many, I'm afraid for him, who feel exactly the same as Mas, Tax, Kelderman and Amarai up front. So Vingegaard with Pogačar and Evenepoel. Fabulous group of riders with Richard Carapaz, all fracturing behind, but there seems to be a little bit of cohesion regathered as they bridge over to each other. So three up front with a handful of seconds back now to those who will chase them. It says 14. And here's those last day you were talking about, Robbie. Absolutely spectacular.
Yeah, what a beautiful road to look at. It would be beautiful to descend. Less beautiful to climb on a 30-plus degree day like this at the end of 3 weeks of really hard racing. So you have another acceleration now by Giulio Ciccone with Richard Carapaz, Marc Soler tracking that one, Jorgensen in his wheel, Derek G. You've got all of the top 10 just amazing, battling each other, attacking each other. I think it's been a good move by Enric Mas. He's down in 20th overall, an hour and 5 minutes behind Tadej Pogačar, and a guy who's been second 3 times overall in the Vuelta a España. A good move, but just the action behind is just limiting any gain they can make. But we should get a really nice aerial shot soon of all these hairpins on the Col de Braus, and should contain nearly the entire peloton weaving their way up it like an army of ants.
No surprise to see Giulio Ciccone. He's only 3 seconds in arrears of Matteo Jorgensen overall. Well, here is the aforementioned. We expect to see Simon Yates battling it out with his brother. Hasn't quite worked out for him, Robbie.
No, not at the moment. I mean, it's been such an intense start that you choose your moment to make your move, go across to the group that you think is going to be the one. You put yourself in the red zone.
Okay, 2 minutes.
The likes of the UAE team with Tadej Pogačar shutting everything down, and it resets. There's more attacks from riders in the top 10, and you find yourself on the back foot like Simon Yates does at the moment. But I'm sure he'll settle into a rhythm and just work on clawing his way back, and then see if he can just reset himself.
Time for us to welcome into the commentary position Sean Kelly. Sean, it's been a brutal start, and already Tadej Pogačar making a big statement. This could be a lot deeper into this day. I know it's a short one, but it's been a sharp start, hasn't it?
Yes, well, I think this was always going to be a sharp one, and every day seems to be sharp. And the terrain here, gives an opportunity to a lot of teams and a lot of riders try and get into the breakaway and see will they be allowed to get away with the advantage to go all the way to the end. But we can see the way
You know, the groups are chasing each other, riders chasing each other in the meantime. You know, not getting a big advantage, but it's causing mayhem. We can see the riders that are already distant in the earlier part of the stage. And this is going to be 111 kilometres of a fight. If it continues on out front, which it does look like it will, it's going to be a big, difficult day for all. And, you know, what a way to finish this Tour of France. And this is going to be a torture day for the guys who want to be inside the time limit again.
Look at that picture. It looks like a game of Frogger. I must admit that we're going to hear from Adam Blythe in a few moments' time, who's busy plying his trade up here. As you can hear the cicada at the side of the road as well. We'll get the thoughts of Adam, who's on the bike for, I guess, the last time, and I don't think we'll be in the time trial
We
tomorrow.
have some problems with the satellite near the airport at the moment, so there is some misconnections with the feed. But I think today Tadej Pogačar wants a stage win. He is after that record of Mark Cavendish's. He has said already he wants to be the most successful cyclist ever, and what would make him the most successful? Being in that lead, beating Mark Cavendish. So today I think UAE are just going to hold it together, and Tadej Pogačar is going to go for another stage win, and that's why we have got the bodies all over the road today. It's chaos out here.
Thank you, Adam. Said from the very beginning of the day that in his mind, Tadej Pogačar, of course, he wants to write pages of history, and he's already, Sean, according to Adam, on the prowl for Mark Cavendish's record of 35 wins. It wouldn't surprise me if it's within range for Tadej.
Baby.
Well, when you look at the way he's chalking up stage wins in races, and this Tour again, the way he's performing here, you know, this is going to be a day he has to follow here for the moment. He cannot just, you know, sit back and leave the race go away from him. So he's in the position where he needs to be for the moment. And it'll be interesting to see as we go further into the stage what the UAE team will do, because you know, we still have the most difficult part of this stage to go. But yeah, it's definitely a one where it's playing into the hands of a rider like Pogačar, who's in such great shape.
Well,
I'm trying to work out just what he was doing there. If he was trying to give a message, if he's giving a message, or looking down and see what groups are where and check out the damage, then he rode himself all the way up to the front and onto the wheel of Richard Carapaz. And that would make Richard Carapaz extremely nervous, seeing Tadej right up to his wheel, and he'd be thinking, oh no, is he going to go and contest these points for the KOM?
What I loved as well is that the guy with the bottles there saying, these aren't for you. He said, no, I don't want a bottle, I'm just looking down the mountain.
The guy in the bottle's like, I don't want to give you a bottle because it'll ruin my video and I'm getting you on film.
Yeah, exactly, hilarious. Oh gosh, to have the wherewithal to do that is something absolutely outstanding.
Victim of the pace, Carlton. Rodriguez here, number 31, far side of this group. He's already in trouble yesterday. So Carlos Rodriguez started the day 6th overall. Up the road is 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th and 12th overall are in front of him. If this horror day continues, he could find himself tumbling out of the top 10. He is at 17:36, and the others would just have to beat him by 5 minutes for him to fall down to 11th.
Sorry, Robbie. Yeah, it's so compressed up there. There could be a lot of changes, and like Santiago Buitrago, Simon Yates as well. Let's not forget. We were thinking about him earlier today, but he looks like he's also struggling. See what Felix Gal does, shall we? Bruno Amarai, we're just tracing at the moment. 1,600 meters before the front group get to the top. And I've just got this.
Damn, my ass is getting a workout.
It's a long old reach, the Col de Turini, but that really is, I think, the heart of
my glutes are sore.
Today's stage, I should say, decided at that point. Let's wait and see. The way the yellow jersey is riding, Sean, I mean, ultimate confidence to have the capability just to start thinking about all the alternatives. Not only that, but where those who would rival you are sitting on the mountain. For goodness sake, it's a showcase, this man, for his abilities in all departments, isn't it, Sean?
Well, that's a great place.
My body is hot right now.
Like Pogačar has been the last number of days. Well, then, you know, it's just so enjoyable But if you're in a position defending the race leadership, and it's
Can't believe how sore my ass is.
riders who's going to challenge you on today's stage, well then it's a very concerning time. But for Pogacar, we've seen again yesterday, like that performance he done when he attacked with 9.5 kilometers to go. And as Robbie was talking about, Carlos Rodriguez, we see yesterday 3:56 he lost to Pogacar in that final 9.5k. That tells us, you know, he is suffering. He's having difficulty, you know, staying with the riders that he normally would stay with on this sort of climb in the earlier part of the day. But fatigue, you know, the accumulation of all of that is hitting some riders. But for Pogacar, he seems to be getting better as the days go on into this third week.
Robbie, there's an ebb and flow to riders and their capabilities, and Enric Mas is really striding out at the beginning of today, and all credit to him, just rolling off the front here. And you can see the pace that he's putting in just to try and hold a margin on the yellow jersey group at the moment. Mas has come good late.
Yeah, he's come good late. He had a difficult start to the Tour and was not really in it riding for GC, but he sort of moved himself up to 20th. But by his standards, that's not riding for GC. He's over an hour behind Tadej Pogacar, but he knows that he's had to push on in this situation. He'd be thinking also about the possible late acceleration on this climb by Richard Carapaz, trying to get mountain points. It might drag others and neutralise Mas's move that he was in with Kelderman and Bruno Amaral. So he's moved on from them. Kelderman was some 10-11 seconds behind Mas. Amaral really fighting his way
Hauling ass today, baby.
from the Movistar team, and I'm just curious to see what happens behind with Carapaz and eventually Tadej Pogacar for
Pretty good numbers.
points on this climb.
Pretty good.
And if they probably won't get to Kelderman.
Somebody has got to where he wants to be, Sean, is Simon Yates, who's just managed to join his brother in that large group of the yellow jersey.
Yes, well, we can see there that the riders getting into the rhythm a bit and getting back into the front group here. But
95 TSS for 58 minutes.
Just saw that tap on the backside as Enric Mas goes over. And
So what, we're looking at like a 30-minute effort and plus 5 1-minute efforts. 30 seconds.
Tap on the backside, said, it's all good. I'm not here to take your jersey off you. Go ahead. So I expect to see Carapaz is next over the top and take that 1 point that's on offer.
Well, here we are within that group at the moment, and Carapaz riding centre of the road, and they're calling him through. How nice is that? That was Pogacar as well, just said, look lads, I've had an agreement with Carapaz, let him go through. And the team indeed just showing their power, but also their gentlemanly side to allow him here.
You know what it gets them as well? Quite possibly an extra domestique for the rest of the day. Imagine Carapaz riding on the front to take points on the next Category 1, shore up his position, the KOM, and then contribute.
Return the favour.
Jorgensen. Oh.
Now then, there's going to be words. He's riding over, he wants a word. Sean.
Well, what a turn up there, because Jorgensen, where he is in the classification, he's only got, what, 53 points. So, you know, what's the point in sprinting here? And you allow the man, you know, who wants the maximum points here as we came over there. And, yeah, I think Carapaz was maybe a little bit too sure he was going to be allowed to take it and nobody else contest. And, yeah, this is going to create a lot of problems here. But, yeah, a nice one from UAE to allow the points available there to be taken.
He's just poked the bear. He's really irritated Carapaz, but it'll also irritate Tadej Pogacar and his team. And they'll say, you know what, Visma? We're going to make sure you don't win today. This is setting up a rampage by Tadej Pogacar.
Just coming into that left-hander there, I'm not suggesting that anyone's taken anyone to the barriers, but certainly showed his upset there, Carapaz. Goodness me. It's not over till it's over by any means, is it, Sean?
No, it's never over, and you know, you have to be so vigilant, and you know, you have to be really looking and concentrating fully. But in a situation like that, you know, when we see UAE allowing Carapaz to come to the front and take the points that were available still on the line there, you know, you're not expecting anybody else to really go because outside of Peogressive, the rest are way too far out. And yeah, it's going to be a one now where we will see that friction building between teams here. It's going to be an interesting one. But this is a day when you talk about, you know, you have to be vigilant. You have to be, you know, fully focused on this stage because we can see, you know, uphill, downhill. It's all the day, climbing, descending. Very little flat in the valley sections. So it's another day for all who are still in this race with a lot to fight for, a lot to play for. You have to keep your focus 100% in this very short stage. And yeah, it's a one which has proven a majorly difficult one again with this rapid start and riders everywhere all over those mountain on the way down and some riders still on the way up.
Amarai and Mas on their descent, you just listen. Well, I'm just listening to the complaints of the motorcycle here. They really are kicking on. Lovely to see Enric Mas